I didn't grow up around million-dollar cars. No Ferraris in the driveway, no silver spoon, just dreams. Most people think it all started with fame, but really, it started with one decision: pick up the camera, step in front of something extraordinary, and talk to the world like I belonged there. That first supercar, it wasn't just horsepower and chrome, it was a door into a life I never imagined. I wasn't a mechanic, I wasn't born into luxury, but I knew how to tell a story, and people listened. From that moment on, I didn't just film cars, I lived them. Concept beasts, hypercars. Machines are so rare, even collectors haven't seen them. Now millions watch. But this story, it's not about views. It's about how a girl with zero connections, zero shortcuts, drove her way into a world built for someone else.
I was up here like on a high and there was a...
Long before the world knew her as Supercar Blondie, she was simply Alexandra Mary Hershey, born on September 25, 1985 in Brisbane, Australia. Bright, curious and ambitious, Alexandra pursued journalism at Queensland University of Technology, learning the craft of storytelling before she ever touched the throttle of a supercar. Her early career began far from luxury garages and revving engines. In the bustling media world of Dubai, she worked as a radio news presenter, reading headlines from behind a studio glass while the real action raced past outside. In a city built on speed, shine and spectacle, she felt like a passenger to life. But one day, something changed. A friend handed her the keys to a Lamborghini Murcielago, not for promotion, not for content, just to experience it. The ignition roared, the V12 snarled to life, and something inside Alexandra, something quiet and buried, woke up. Driving down Jumeirah Road, palm trees blurring past, heads turning, phones filming, the silence of routine shattered. This wasn't just a drive, it was a revelation. Cars weren't just machines, they were emotion, expression, and power sculpted in carbon fiber. At that moment, Alexandra saw the gap. No one was telling these stories, not the specs, not the stats, but the soul of the car. The magic of motion. That day something sparked, and soon the world would know her name. Quitting your job sounds exciting, until you're actually staring at the resignation email. I sat there, cursor blinking, palms sweating. I wasn't walking away from just a salary. I was walking into the unknown. No guarantees, no security, just a woman with a phone and an obsession with cars. Some called it brave, others thought I was mad. But I knew one thing: if I didn't leap, I'd stay invisible. So I jumped. I started with the basics, filming with my phone, editing on the couch, posting on Instagram with shaky captions. I didn't have a blueprint. I had an instinct and heart. I talked about cars the way people talk about falling in love, with awe, not just facts. The first car I showcased on my own was a Bugatti Veyron.
This is where they manufacture a Bugatti. This is where you actually design your own Bugatti.
I didn't just list the top speed or price tag. I told people what it felt like, what it meant to touch a machine that cost more than most homes, what it meant to hear an engine built like a symphony of fury. To my surprise, people listened. Not millions, not at first, but enough. Enough to know I was onto something. And slowly things changed. Views turned to followers, comments turned to the community, brands started noticing. But I was still filming in parking lots, crouching for angles, borrowing lighting gear. It wasn't polished, it was real. I wasn't just making content, I was building a voice, a story, a presence. And every post, every rev of an engine was a step further away from who I used to be. There's a moment in every journey when the noise suddenly fades and the spotlight finds you. For me, that moment came wrapped in carbon fiber and pure adrenaline. The Devel 16, a car so unreal, people thought it was a hoax. 5,000 horsepower, top speed, theoretically 350 mph. It looked like it belonged in a Marvel film, not a showroom. But there I was, standing next to it, this blonde woman from Brisbane, narrating something the world had never really seen. I didn't just show the car, I felt it. I made the audience feel it too. The absurdity, the madness, the beauty of pushing engineering to its limits. That video exploded. Millions of views, overnight. People didn't just watch, they shared, they talked, they subscribed. Suddenly, Supercar Blondie wasn't just a name, it was a brand, it was me, and with that came access. The doors that once stayed shut for journalists, they swung open. Hypercars, prototypes, unreleased concept vehicles, they were offering me keys before the media even saw a press release. The Mercedes AVTR, the Rolls-Royce Vision Next 100, the Tesla Cybertruck, I was there before the headlines. But success isn't just views, it's pressure, expectations, a million eyes waiting on your next post, your next review, your next emotion. Yet, every time I stood before a new car, I reminded myself I wasn't here to act impressed. I was here to connect, to take the extraordinary and make it human. That was the breakthrough. Not the views, but the voice I found behind them. Some machines leave a mark, not just on the road, but on your soul. I've sat behind the wheel of cars most people will never see outside a screen, but a few, they stay with me. The Bugatti Chiron Pure Sport, raw power wrapped in elegance. I remember gripping that wheel, the silence before ignition, and thinking, this isn't just a car, this is art in motion. Then came the McLaren Speedtail, long, surreal, almost alien. Its teardrop shape wasn't just for looks. It's the fastest McLaren ever made. 3 seats with the driver in the center. Sitting there felt like flying a spaceship. Everything around me blurred. The road, the noise, even time. And then the one that made me pause. The Rolls-Royce Boat Tail, a bespoke piece of luxury worth over $20 million. Handmade, the umbrella, the picnic setup in the rear, the champagne fridge. It wasn't just a car. It was a message. This is what happens when money meets imagination. Every one of those drives reminded me why I started. Not for fame, not for followers, but for the story each car carries. People see horsepower and price tags. I see dreams made metal, and no matter how fast they go, what I remember most is how they made me feel. Because in the end, it's not about the machine, it's about the moment it creates. People see the cars, the rare engines, the roaring speed, the multi-million-dollar price tags, but what they don't always see is me. A woman in a man's world, blonde hair, camera in one hand, adrenaline in the other. There were moments I'd walk into a showroom and eyes would roll. Another influencer, they'd think, but then I'd speak, ask the right questions, open the bonnet, slide into the driver's seat like I belonged there, because I did. The truth? I was never trying to be the first female car YouTuber. I just loved cars, genuinely, deeply, and I wanted to show the world the kind of machines most people didn't even know existed. What I didn't expect was how quickly the world responded. Millions of followers, messages from girls saying, "You made me feel like I can do this too." But it wasn't all glitz. There were hate comments, stereotypes. People assumed I didn't know what I was talking about, that I was just there for views. I kept filming, because every time I hit a record, I felt like I was opening a door for someone else. Someone like me, who didn't fit the mold, but had the heart to try. I wasn't just showing off supercars. I was showing what happens when you don't wait for permission. And somewhere between the roar of engines and the silence of self-doubt, I became more than a YouTuber. I became the woman behind the wheel. I never planned to travel the world filming supercars, but then one invitation turned into 5. 5 became 20.
This is the Grand Tour of Switzerland.
Before I knew it, I was filming on icy mountain roads in Switzerland, neon-lit highways in Tokyo, and private airfields in Dubai. Every country had a different beast waiting for me. Machines you don't just find in dealerships, but behind hidden vault doors or in the collections of billionaires. There were days I barely slept. We'd land, unpack, set up the gear, shoot in blistering heat or freezing rain. Sometimes the car was the easy part. Gaining access was the real mission. Hours of negotiation just to get 10 minutes behind the wheel. But when that engine started, the fatigue vanished. I was exactly where I was meant to be. I remember driving the Devil 16 in Dubai, a car people said didn't even exist. 5,000 horsepower, unreal. The moment I hit the pedal, I didn't feel like I was filming a video. I felt like I was making history. And the audience, they came with me. From teenagers in Brazil to mechanics in South Korea, people began commenting things like, "I've never seen this car in my life," or "I feel like I'm riding with you." That's when it clicked. This channel wasn't just about rare cars, it was about access, about showing the world something they thought was out of reach. And that meant going global wasn't just a choice, it became the heartbeat of what I do. Today, Alexandra Mary Hershke, known across the globe as Supercar Blondie, is no longer just that girl who once hosted a Dubai radio show. She's become one of the most recognizable figures in the automotive world, with a staggering 120 million followers combined across YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok. Her journey from the studio mic to the spotlight of supercar culture is now marked by her personal car collection, not just cars she films, but her own prized machines. She lives in a luxurious private residence, and her estimated net worth sits comfortably at over $15 million, thanks to brand deals, YouTube revenue, and global collaborations. From test driving unreleased hypercars to being flown out for world-first reveals, Supercar Blondie has built more than a career. She's built a media empire, and the girl who once asked for a test drive now gets handed the keys before the world even sees the car. Over the years, I've sat behind the wheel of machines most people only see in dreams, but there are some that stayed with me long after the engine cut off. The Bugatti Chiron Supersport, 1,600 horsepower of pure madness. I remember the moment I touched that steering wheel. It was like holding lightning, a car that made time feel slower and faster at once.
I can't believe I'm driving the Devil 16 around a track!
Then there was the Devil 16, almost mythical. People said it couldn't be real, but I was there, stood beside it, saw its beast-like body up close. It was a monster from another world, the Rolls-Royce boat tail. That wasn't just a car, that was art. $28 million of handcrafted elegance. I filmed that car like I was filming royalty, because that's what it felt like. Each of those cars had a story, a personality, but what connected them all was access. I wasn't born into this world, but somehow I'd built a bridge into it, and I brought millions along for the ride. I don't just drive these cars, I will introduce them to kids in Nairobi, to dreamers in Mumbai, to mechanics in Detroit. My job isn't just to show horsepower, it's to spark possibilities. And somewhere between the roar of a V12 and the silent hum of a concept EV, I found mine. I didn't grow up with fast cars or flashing lights. I grew up with questions. How do people live like that? Who gets to touch those dreams? And most of all, could that ever be me? I wasn't born in a showroom. I started with a smartphone, shaky edits, and an obsession with design, with speed, with stories written in steel. Years later, here I am, telling the world those stories, not because I had the keys from the start, but because I learned to build my own garage of dreams. Every car I show you isn't just about wealth, it's about vision, about daring to live outside the lane you were told to stay in. And if you've ever felt like the dream is too far, let this be proof that passion can drive you there. Thank you for riding with me. If you found value in this story, if it lit a spark in you, then I've done my job. For more untold journeys, deep dives, and stories that move you, hit that subscribe button and join us at Nke Oma Documentary TV. Because the road to greatness, it doesn't start with a map. It starts with belief. And trust me, you're closer than you think.
Let's take it on the track.